Hola.
Hola. Hi, my friend.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I've been so excited for this all week.
Oh, do you know what? As I think I mentioned last week, once you go down this rabbit hole, it's a nightmare. Oh, the amount of research I'm getting this week is crazy. I could write a whole new book just from this week.
Really?
Oh, it's gone nuts. What everyone in the church is doing is that, they're very good, and I follow most of them. What they're doing is they've put a timeline together, which we'll talk about
Yep.
later. I think it's a very good timeline. I think it's very accurate. And I think given what we've heard from the president of the church and the apostles and the talks at conference, I think it's very pertinent that we are literally so close to the end. You can almost touch it. Anybody could go and read what they're doing in the Bible, and they can kind of come up with their own conclusions. But what no one's really doing, which we're going to talk a little bit about tonight, is you're familiar with Daniel's last week of prophecy, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
So, well, they've put the last week timeline in, which we'll cover, but they're only talking up to the 31st of April 2021. And then from 2021 to 24, it's kind of all fuzzy, and nobody's prepared to put themselves out on a limb, but I am.
Okay, cool.
I've got nothing to lose type of attitude. I'm not a representative of the church.
Yep.
I've already met with my bishop, the stake presidents. I've told them what I'm doing. I even had a communication with the area presidency over it.
Wow, yeah.
And they've basically just said, look, just go for it, do it,
Nice.
So that's not an endorsement, but what they're basically saying is, as long as you don't make any official declaration on behalf of the church, there's no issue.
Yep.
We've got our own free agency, we've got our own knowledge, our own information. So I'm prepared to go out on a limb.
Wonderful.
And I'm going to cover some of that tonight.
Yeah.
And I've researched quite a few members of the church who've done some really, really awesome, amazing work. And I've kind of put some of their stuff into my book. But what they're not doing is they're not talking about what's going to happen as of, well, what I call, the next conference. I don't know whether you know, Kirstin, but this is the first conference in the history of the church that they haven't actually mentioned the next one.
No, I didn't pick that up.
Well, if you have ears to hear and eyes to see.
What?
Now, I'm going to kind of share what I think about that and kind of get into really what that message, or certainly the last two conferences, from last April's conference and from now October's conference, most of the talks were about second coming. They were about food storage. They were about times run, get your house in order. So really, that's kind of where we're at. We are literally. I mean, other than the prophets actually putting the date on it, which I don't think he would do anyway, we're kind of at that point, I think.
Absolutely. I feel that with every bit of me.
What I did, I spent the last 3.5 years trying to build a business up, really talking about currency, the whole debacle of what that was about, the scam that the governments are pulling, the value of gold not being used, and what constitutes real money and what constitutes currency. And that was kind of my rabbit hole for the last three, well, probably a little bit longer now, probably about 5-6 years. But my businesses was based on trying to do something that when we got to this point, what we're talking about now, I would have a business that while I didn't make any money then, I would make money kind of now.
Yeah.
So it's all to do with helping people get out of debt. It's all to do with the law and entanglement of mortgage debt.
Yep.
The whole slavery issue of that. And we're at the point now, and I'll just give you a little insight into that. There's a guy called Mike Maloney from America. He's a gold and silver dealer, business. Well, what he does lots of research on currency. And what transpired over the last couple of months while all of this COVID nonsense was going on is all the big bankers have now drafted up a global digital coin, which is going to replace cash. They're going to give everybody a universal credit, which is like a monthly loan, and it'll have a time scale on it. What that's going to be is, with this global lockdown pandemic now, I don't think it will ever be lifted now. What will happen, they're going to crash the economy, the world economy. They're going to introduce this new global coin, digital coin. What it will allow, or what it will do, is it will connect every single person to a one server contract of currency. So they will know every penny you spend. They'll know everything that you buy, everything that you do, where you go, how you spend it, and what that does, it creates an economy that they control.
Yeah.
Not you. So your agency, now if you think a market to be 666, well, I'm afraid it's here. Because what that will do, if you're seen as a dissident person, or not playing the game, or a bit of an anarchist, or a bit of a revolutionary, well, guess what? You don't get any money.
Yeah. This is where my thoughts of a parallel society. We have to prepare to live in a parallel society. So the world society, and then there'll be a parallel one where we won't have money. It'll be barter. It'll be look at self-sufficiency.
Yeah, I got called probably 10 years plus now, I would think. I was called on to what was the original public affairs. Mm. And I was the assistant director of public affairs for our stake, Liverpool stake. Mm. And my specific assignment was to monitor what was going on global economics, global news, where we were, what was happening, how things were moving, where would the church be, what were we going to come up against, type of thing. But when I got released, I couldn't let that baby go. I couldn't drop that bag. So it became part of my research. What happens now is I'm constantly viewing the news. I don't do it as much as I used to. I mean, I used to watch the news for 6 or 7 hours a day. Now I only kind of put it on.
You can't believe the news anyway.
Yeah, well, you can't believe it. But unfortunately, that's the narrative that we're being fed.
Yeah.
So whatever they're feeding us, it's either they're feeding us to prepare us for something, and they want us to follow a certain pattern. So it's almost like a brainwashing tool.
Yes,
isn't
absolutely.
it? So if you don't know what the enemy is doing, you kind of can't prepare yourself. So I've watched it periodically to prepare myself so that I knew what I could do.
Yeah.
And then when we got to this pivotal point, as President Nelson says, I would have what I feel would be the ability to, as you say, move away into that other dimension rather than be stuck in the 666 beat control mechanism. Because if we don't move away, i.e. we're self-sufficient, we've got food storage, like yourself, you're on a farm, you can pretty much care for your own needs without having to go out into the world. Gold, silver, cryptocurrency, all of that sort of monetary system, as you say, barter. So what I've done is I've got a gold business, I've got a silver business, I've got crypto business. Hey, going back to what all of these LDS members who have put these presentations together, which are fantastic, and I love them to bits. They're only talking scriptural stuff, and they're only talking church stuff. What I've done is I've gone, well, what's going on in the world? What's the news? What are the Gadianton robbers, for want of a phrase? The global elitists, the world pandemic, the people who are controlling the banks. So I've monitored that side of it. I've looked into that. And then what I've done is I've tied it into the church stuff.
Wonderful.
I've looked into how that fits into our time frame. So that's really what we're going to be talking about tonight, is where I want to take your viewers, my viewers, because if you just come at it from a church point of view, now this is only my personal view, I don't know how you feel, but if we just try and batter people with scripture, church, repent, bang that drum, you're not going to get people. I'm sorry, we're not.
You'll only get a select people that will listen. If they think, oh, this is a churchy chat, they'll just shut it off straight away.
So that's what I've done. I've moved totally away from that, and I'm saying, look, I am a church member, and I respect what our prophets are saying, and I follow the counsel of our prophets. I want to introduce you to the rabbit hole, the conspiracy theory, or I don't call it conspiracy theory anymore. I call it truth seekers, because I've always been a truth seeker. Unfortunately, we've been sort of categorized or labeled as tin hat people. But have a look at this stuff. Go down the rabbit hole yourself, do a little bit of research, and if you come up with the same conclusion, then great. If you don't, then great.
Yeah, exactly. You got nothing to lose.
So that people can follow the story. My name is obviously Paul Gunson. The picture that I've got there, which is the ark, which is misspelled, stands for Are You Ready for Change? Because I do think we're right at that pivotal point right now as to where that change is going to be. You know, we're no longer talking end day prophecy. We're at it. We're living it. We're watching it. And if you look at the presentation that's been put forward by President Nelson, clearly they're saying it without saying it, aren't they? You've got to have the ears. So what I'm saying to people who are looking at this, look, when the ark, the original biblical story of the ark and the flood, a lot of people don't really know the story. So I'm going to cover that a little bit just to bring people up to speed. But I'm saying to people, look, we're at the ark stage again, where, you know, we're not facing the flood this time, we're facing a fire this time.
There is that quote where it says, food storage and preparation now is as important as it was to get on the ark.
Absolutely, and that's where I've kind of pinched this from. So what I'm looking at is I'm going to show you what I believe is the narrative from the second coming of Christ, how it ties in. There are two scriptures. What I've done, I've put the Savior deliberately in the middle because these two scriptures are, for me, the complete narrative of what I'm trying to get people to understand. And that is Genesis 6:4, which says, there were giants in the earth in those days. And after that, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, and they bore children unto them, the same became mighty men which are of old, men of renown. And then the other scripture, which is the other end of the Bible, is Jesus Christ himself saying, quote, but as the days of Noah were, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man be. And knew not until the flood came and took them away, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Now, what that references is, as people weren't ready for the ark when the flood came, they're not going to be ready for when the Savior comes again. That's the analogy. That's the parable. That's the that's the time frame. So what he's saying is, they didn't learn from the flood, and they certainly haven't learned from what I've told them of what's going in the end. So what I'm trying to say to people, well, if people didn't understand what was going on in Noah's time, well, then they're certainly not going to understand what's going on now. So, and he even says, people aren't going to know what's coming, how it's coming, how it's going to happen. And I'm going to try and shed that light on that. Okay, so what really went on at Noah's Ark? Well, most people will just say, oh, the people became wicked, and, God decided he just wanted to do away with them. Well, I've never bought that story, to be honest. I never bought it, and I still don't buy it. He wasn't trying to destroy you and I. What had happened is the whole narrative or the whole history of what went on as that boat departed was something that you can't find in the Bible. The narrative of Genesis is preceded by the book of Enoch. The book of Enoch, up until probably 3rd, 4th century, was contained as part of the canonized scripture. Due to the start of the Nicene Council, where Constantine tried to, go down the religious path and move people around and try and unify people into one religion, from a period then, which probably lasted 300-400 years, it wasn't done overnight, it wasn't a quick thing, but they came up with what we would deem the scriptures today. But the book of Enoch was taken out, and it was taken out deliberately, and I believe Lucifer had a part to play in that. Yeah. Because when you read the book of Enoch, you really understand what was going on at Genesis before the flood. And what actually happened was the whole book of Enoch talks about the angels, 200 in number, who came and landed on Mount Hermon, which is in Jerusalem. That's in Israel, Jerusalem. They were given the assignment from Heavenly Father to help and nurture humanity, teach them how to plant, how to grow, how to build, and so forth and so on. But what happened, they saw what was going on, and they thought, hey, we want a bit of this. The sons of God, which were angels, decided they wanted to have the human experience as well. So they started to take women for wives, and they bore children.
Now, just to clarify something here, because I've seen other people say, oh, they can't have bodies because they're the fallen angel, they're the fallen, that followed Lucifer. That's not what we're talking about here.
See, this is the reason why you need the book of Enoch.
Yeah.
Because in the Bible, there are references to it which are out of context that suggest that, angels don't have the ability to mate. And certainly a lot of class of angels don't.
And the third of the host of heaven who followed Satan's plan don't.
They're spirits. They're just spirits. They've no physical body. No. They are just spiritual entities.
They're different.
And hence, we were created spiritually, which was our first estate.
Yep.
We were given, mortal bodies, which is basically our second estate, if you like.
Yeah.
So we as a human species had the ability to mate. Now, these angels were sent down with an assignment to actually assist mankind or humanity. Now, they clearly did have the ability to mate, and that's what they did. Now, you've seen this picture before. Now, this isn't to scale. Well, it is to scale up to 36 foot. But pre-flood, these giants were anything up to 450 feet, which we've mentioned before. So that would make that scale quite, the 6 foot guy would just almost disappear.
Yeah.
So we can't put it to scale on that, but that is to scale with 6 foot as 36 foot. Now, this was what was produced. These were the offspring. Now, these are all pre-flood, and up to the 450 footers, they were all pre-flood.
Yeah.
So that's what happened, and that's what the result was. Now, unless you read the book of Enoch, you'll have no understanding of what that is, because when that's mentioned in Genesis 6:4, you don't get that story. You just don't get it. Now, what was interesting, when Moses was writing the 5 books of the Torah, which is the law, he mentions the giants as if, well, everybody knows who the giants are. I'm not telling you nothing you don't know. So hence, there was no reference to it in the book of Genesis, other than to refer to it.
Yep.
Oh, there were giants in the land in those days. Well, everybody knew who the giants were.
Yeah.
As the flood occurred, the story, and I'm not going to go through the whole book of Enoch, but basically the angels came unto Enoch and asked that Enoch go and plead with the Lord to forgive them. They realized they've made the mistake, but they were cursed and chained up and locked away, and they were told, you're never going to do that again. But what did happen post was that because all flesh had become corrupted, they started to mix the DNA. Because they couldn't have the ability to procreate now, what started to happen was there was a manipulation of the genes. And this is where we get all the mythology, the Greek history, the Satyrs, the Minotaurs, the mermaids, the Gorgon, the Cyclops, the Pegasus horse, the wolf with 3 heads, the phoenix, because these are all hybrid creatures. So this is all post-flood. And where all these came from was the fact that when the sons of Noah took the daughters on board, all flesh had been corrupted pre the flood.
Yeah.
So while God was wiping out everything else, the giants, the sin, the debauchery, what was going on, what he couldn't do is not allow the 3 wives on, because they had to allow for the rest of humanity to develop.
Yeah.
But what had happened is the giants were wiped off the earth. But what came after the flood with these characters, because the 3 daughters on Noah's Ark, their DNA had been altered. So when they produced children, we started to get this,
came through. Yep.
These kind of entities started to come through.
Yep.
And there were giants. There were clearly giants, but they weren't the 400 footers anymore. This is where we get the story of Gog and Magog, who were the giants who settled the UK, David and Goliath giants, who were sort of 12, 15 footers. Yep. So what's happened now is the size has heavily been reduced, if you like. So what we've got now is this is the scenario up till now, just after the flood, and we're probably talking a period of 1 or 2, 300 years. We're not talking 3 weeks. So the whole issue of hybrids is what happened post-flood, yeah?
Yep.
Now, to bring it right forward, because this topic is about transhumanism, we're going to see where all of this is coming about again. This is where it gets exciting. Now, I have some really serious issues here, and I'm going to be very open and very blunt about it, and whatever consequences happen.
Okay.
But we do know that cloning has now been successful. You might be familiar with Dolly the sheep. They've done the same with cows. They've done the same with pigs. They've done the same with most animals. What they know is that they can do this stuff. Now, there has always been ethical issues of cloning humans, but let me tell you, It's happened. We
I
might
don't-
not be told about it, but it's happened.
Yeah.
Okay? Because what I want our listeners to know is this. Jesus said, unless I cut short the second coming, i.e., he had the date in mind. But had I not cut it short, there would be not one soul left. Not one. That's his message in the book of Matthew, okay? He's not just saying this for some reason. He obviously knew something that was going to happen, and I'm going to tell you now what's going to happen.
Okay.
Put myself out on a limb, but here goes. This is where it's going to get hairy. If you ask yourself what is the biggest single atrocity in the world today, what do you think it would be, Kirstin? The biggest single atrocity in the world today, you can put sex trafficking out there, you can put transhumanism, you can put the wars. None of that compares to abortions. I think I mentioned last time, I'm more interested in what goes on in America than I am anywhere else in the world, because whatever goes on in America, it's going to go on everywhere else at some point. America are killing approximately 250,000 to 400,000 babies every year. Now, here's my putting myself out on the limb. If Satan wants to build an army and he has control of technology and all of this issue around cloning, if you take the number of spirits that left the pre-existence with Lucifer, 1/3 of the hosts. Now, we don't know what 1/3 was, but we know the current population is 7.8 billion.
Yep.
So that means, based on that figure alone, and not all the previous people who have lived and passed away, because they what you got to remember here is where is the spirit in connection to the body, yeah? Everybody that's been born has always had the spirit, so when they've died, that spirit's gone back up to heaven to be with Heavenly Father. So we're not talking about those people. So anyone that's passed away, anybody that's died, that we're not talking about that number. We're talking about the number of hosts that left with Lucifer being 1/3. So if all the spirits were pre-created, if you like, before the plan of salvation started, then if the second coming is as close as we think it is, then we're talking now about a population of 7.8 billion.
Yep.
So let's say 1/3 of them are these fallen spirits, yeah? So let's just make the math simple. 2 billion spirits are now currently roaming the earth trying to occupy a body.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So those who allow it, now you got to remember, going back to Adam and Eve, God cursed Lucifer to roam on his belly all his life. Yeah, he put enmity between his seed and the seed of the woman, meaning that the ability for Lucifer to have a sexual relationship with anybody was kind of stopped.
Yep.
And therefore, we knew that the fallen angels weren't going to be able to do that again because they've now been locked away.
Yep.
But these spirits that came and were cast down to earth, they are free to roam and they are free to occupy anybody that they can get hold of. And we know that
possession,
demonic possession, straight there, straightforward.
Yeah.
Now, here's the spanner in the works. If this Luciferian organization, the One World Order, your Bill Gates, anybody that's into genetics, anyone's into transhumanism, and there's loads of them, then what a perfect scenario that they have all of the aborted fetuses of these babies.
Yep.
If we did the calculation, I wouldn't be surprised if we found there's probably over the history of the world, there's probably quite a few of them, yeah? I'm suggesting that cloning is going to be used for the possession of those demonic entities.
That makes sense to me. I'm thinking, like, even if the spirit enters the body at the moment of conception or soon thereafter, once that fetus is aborted, the spirit would return to Heavenly Father anyway, and they are left with the body.
Absolutely. You know, where the spirit enters the body is up for debate and discussion, and it's certainly another rabbit hole I've got to go down now. The point I'm making here, because Lucifer couldn't go down the rules of sex, he had to come up with a different method.
Yes.
And this was the method that those post-floods used to corrupt the DNA of humans. And that's where we got all the hybrids. Now, I believe the angels have now been loosed from Tartarus. They've now brought forward the technology. And now all of a sudden, in the last 10 to 20, 30 years, these techniques have now been to
Mastered.
the point where they're now able to do these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Prior to them being tied up in Tartarus up until what I believe was the 1900s, that technology didn't exist. Nobody knew about it. Nobody understood it. All of a sudden, genetics is on the market, and we're now able to clone not only species of animals, but I also believe we've probably cloned humans as well. Now, some people will say, well, you know, it's a good thing, you know, it can be used for medical research. And if you have a defective heart, you know, we can transplant the heart. And I get all that. Wouldn't it be great if you had a spare body, like you have spare parts to a car when a car gets broke down? But ethically,
Yeah.
no, doesn't make sense to me.
You just
And
muck
I don't.
around with stuff that shouldn't be mucked around with.
And this was clearly what was being mucked around with pre-flood.
Blood. Yes.
That's why we had the giants.
Yes.
So what we've got now, we've got the same approach to humanity in that they want to change the DNA.
Yep.
Some of the stuff that I'm going to cover over the coming weeks and months, I'm going to show you these organizations that are actually doing this stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
They're not hiding it.
Yeah, it's not some fantasy theory.
No.
That these things are happening.
We'll be able to put new body parts. We'll be able to give the soldier who's lost his arm, we could cut the other arm off the other. You know what I mean? You know, it just sounds wrong, doesn't it? Let alone is wrong. The key is for me, is I believe, and this is only my theory, this is not church doctrine, that those aborted fetuses, all they have to have is a DNA sample, and they can clone that baby.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, and by the way, they don't need to have a lot of them because they can clone as many as they want. They only need one set of DNA. And I can tell you now quite categorically that the human genome has now been completely sequenced. They know exactly how every human genome works, what's involved, how it functions, where it is and how it works, how it functions, blah, blah, blah. So what we've now got is all of the scientific knowledge needed to make this succeed. But that's not how far this goes. It goes further. That is just an organic process. Mm-hmm. That is just if Lucifer just wanted human bodies to be possessed, for those who have fallen, you know, came with him, that's great. He's now got the means by which he can achieve that. What he's also got now is the nanotechnology, the AI, the artificial intelligence. So even if he doesn't have access to human bodies, the amount of robotic entities that are being created. Now, they are robots at this stage. You know, they are mechanical. They can't think for themselves. They
at
do
this
have...
stage.
Well, we're going to go down there in a second.
Yeah.
But what you've got now is, this is the ultimate goal, isn't it? Is to see if they can create the organic process to meet with the mechanical process.
Yeah.
You know, we know that a lot of people who have lost limbs and disabilities, they've had artificial legs, artificial arms, and prostheses attached. Mm-hmm. Fantastic, all incredible stuff, wonderful stuff, gives people back their mobility and all that. And in the essence of medical science, I'm all for it. Mm-hmm. Not opposed to it in the slightest. If we have those bodies available for possession, then this is what we're facing. Yeah. Because those spirits will not have empathy. They will not have the ability to love. They won't have the ability to be as what we would call human beings, because they know, like Lucifer, they have no place in the next world. So if you think of zombie nation films, this is what I see happening.
Yes.
These people will be blank-faced. You could argue they may be of an ET environment. I do believe that has a place to play in this. We will be going down the alien rabbit hole. But these are about these demonic spirits possessing bodies and will not have any empathy for us whatsoever.
Not just will they not have any empathy, they hate us and want to destroy us.
Absolutely.
How
they know
scary is that?
Well, that's it. They know that we have the gift to go back to God.
Yes.
They will know that they can't. So as you say, now again, going a little bit out on the limb, if you look at what is happening from a scriptural point of view, and certainly with the recent messages, one scripture that is right in our face right now is that we are on the verge scripturally of the gates of hell and the bottomless pit being opened. And the bottomless pit will let forth the locusts. Those locusts are demonic entities, and they're going to be looking for bodies to possess. The scripture talks about how they sting humanity. They don't kill us, they sting us. The scripture kind of says that we will seek death but won't be able to find it. I have some people who we've made calculations, and we believe potentially, and I hope we're wrong, I pray we're wrong, that the 31st of October is the date that the bottomless pit is opened.
You'd mentioned in the previous chat that you're going to the Lake District for that. Do you believe that that whipping of the tail has to do with the opening of the bottomless pit?
It's the same day.
Right.
That is the sign in heaven given to the opening of the bottomless pit.
Oh, that's the sign given to that.
Yes, because it's Lucifer whipping the universe or whipping the stars to say, I've got control of this. I'm going to destroy the world. And that's when we start to get the hailstorm hitting the ground that burns up all of the crops. So hence we may very well start to have food shortages.
Well, that's all prophesied as well, famines.
Oh, it's all prophecy. Yeah. The only thing is we've put ourselves out on a limb and attached it to the timeline. So what we're saying on the 31st, if this astronomical event occurs and we see it on the 31st, by the way, is All Hallows Day.
31st of October.
Halloween, well, that's obviously a pagan death and blood sacrificial. Why we celebrate it in church is beyond me, but that's another story.
Yeah, we've decided in our house we're not celebrating it this year, now that we know better.
I'm up in the Lake District, so I won't be doing it.
Yeah.
So what you've got is this locust situation could potentially be released. Now, what's interesting, this is the ultimate for Satan to do away with humanity completely and to put all of his demonic possession into AI, robotic technology that also has a consciousness. And if you think this isn't happening, this is scientific evidence. They have now got neural links, robotic neural links that can be implanted into the brain. It can improve.
This is Elon Musk, isn't it?
This is all Elon Musk.
Yeah.
These chip connections are wireless. They are able to be placed. They're able to be controlled. Don't get me wrong. They'll go down the route of, these will help people with Alzheimer's and dementia. People who've had brain injury. And yeah, I get all that. It's all fantastic.
There's always a good side.
But what we're doing is we're selling ourselves to this technology on the basis, a little bit like the COVID-19 at the moment. We need to look after people. We need to save people. We need to make sure everyone's safe. Yeah. The real thing is so that this stuff can come in. Because once we accept the vaccine, we start accepting this stuff. How would you like to have a chip that would improve your memory? How would you like to have this? Or how would you like to like that?
And that's how it will be sold to us.
Yeah, and as I say, other than the Savior saying, unless I cut short the day of my coming, the whole humanity would be lost. How do we prepare for this? Scriptures tell us in Ephesians 6 that we really do need to put on the armor of God.
Yep.
Because we have one of two choices. We fall for the narrative, we wear the masks, we accept the vaccine, we accept the lockdown, and anything else they want to throw at us. Or, as members of the church, or as those who I believe have been enlightened, because I believe there is an awakening out there, there is a consciousness that is aware of all of this stuff and are fighting back for their freedom. They're not church members, they're just a consciousness.
Yep.
And I follow them guys as well. We have the opportunity now as members of the church, not only to prepare physically and temporarily food storage. I mean, in my case, I believe gold, silver, and cryptocurrency is part of the answer, because the alternative is we accept whatever's coming.
Yeah.
As I say, they're talking now about doing away with cash. They're going to give us this crypto coin. They're going to give us free money, by the way, and that's how they'll sell it, because they're going to give us the free money, let's say $1,000 or $2,000 or pounds or whatever currency you're in. We'll give you that every month for free. I think there's two choices. We accept it or we reject it. I think you might not have a choice of rejecting it, by the way. And I think even us as members of the church, we may very well have to accept it. And this is where the whole thing of the mark of the beast, do we accept it, do we reject it? I'm going to suggest that everybody will be given this free money. It's called a helicopter drop. They'll say, we'll give you £1,000, £2,000 a month. All you have to do is spend it. And the reason why you have to spend it, because it's got an interest rate against it. And the only way that you can create any currency velocity is to first inflate it and then secondly deflate it. And that's how you get the exchange of currencies. One currency of one country will be played against the other. In this case, it's a unified. So if you want to buy something, let's say I buy some beef off you, I can only use their currency to do it.
So they know exactly where it's all being spent.
Every single digital coin is programmed, and it can be programmed to specific products.
Yep.
So let's just go the ridiculous on this. Let's just say in the first instance, I want to buy beef off you. So you say to me, Paul, I've got some beef here. Would you buy some off me? Yes. And let's say I buy £20 worth of beef, as in weight. That will have a price already programmed into it. Let's say it's 20 coins. Every one of those coins that is now trackable to me will now be trackable to you. I get the beef, you get the coin, and then guess what? You want to buy your groceries from somewhere else. Every transaction is trackable by whoever controls the money.
That makes complete sense,
Now, is that not the sign of the 666 beast? That you will not be able to buy or sell? Now, I think that's coming next year. I think this is the reason why the prophet never announced what the next conference. Paul Gunson speaking, not doctrine, not a representative, not a prophet. I don't think we're going to see next conference.
When you say that, what are you saying?
I just wanted to create a bit of suspense. Go to the next slide and all will be revealed.
Okay, all right.
Right. Now, this is not my work. This is the work of somebody who I follow.
Yep.
And I give credit to anyone that's produced these timelines. These timelines do work for me as well in my research. Right, let me explain. The whole of Daniel's prophecy in the last 70 weeks, the sign given for that was that the Jerusalem that was destroyed in the 3rd century, so I think it was 369 AD, that the sign given for the last 70 weeks of Daniel prophecy was that there would be a proclamation for the rebuilding of Jerusalem, And that occurred in 1535. And it was Suleiman, the Muslim, who actually was significantly involved in the building back up of the Jerusalem walls. Now, if you take that forward into timeline, that passed a period of time which was 62 weeks, which was 439 years, as to which that was built. Then you look at the 1969, what was significant about 1969? That was the conclusion of the rebuilding of Jerusalem. That was when everything was finished. Everything was now basically ready for whatever was coming. Now that was the spring of 1969. That was to do with the nation of Jerusalem being acknowledged and all of that, the Jews getting control over Jerusalem again. And that kicked in the last 7 weeks, which brings us right forward to the spring of 2000. What's opened up the 7th seal was the dedication of the Palmyra, New York temple. And by the way, this completion of Jerusalem, that had to have occurred in the 6th seal. It wasn't something that was to go into the 7th seal. So they only made that by 30 years. With the dedication of the Palmyra temple, we know that that would be a significant opening of the 7th seal. That gives us a 7-week period, which is 49 years, which then would introduce us to the last week of Daniel in his prophecy. Which came on the fall of 2017, 23rd of September. Now, what was significant, the two significant events that proclaimed the opening of that and the sign given in heaven was the first solar eclipse. that went right across America, touched every town across the states of America that had the Salem, which meant Jerusalem, and the woman who travailed in birth, who came forth and delivered their child.
Yep.
That happened in 2017. Now, we haven't got the timeline on this of what we're saying, which is the 31st of this month, but the sign given is this astronomical event whereby this potential colliding of the comet that passed by us about 4 months ago, that was a sign, and that it's going to hit the asteroid belt around Neptune, and that's going to potentially come back on us.
Yep.
And the analogy is it's a whipping of Lucifer's tail,
yep.
sending all the rocks back to the earth, and that's going to be what hits the ground and causes everything to burn, start to burn. What you got to remember, Heavenly Father has now silenced himself. He said, "You're not repentant. I did warn you. I'm now going to let whatever's going to happen happen. I'm not going to stop anything anymore. It's just going to happen." That brings us up to potentially, I think it's the 8th of April 2021, where we have 4 events that I think we can watch out for and look for, which are what I think will happen. And the fact that they haven't mentioned conference, they haven't said, we're adjourned to the next conference. First time in the history of the church, they've never said that.
Wow.
I don't think we're going to see it. And the reason why we're not going to see it, because we might not even be here. Because this half hour of silence ends, and there is a quickening event. If you're familiar with the scriptures, that those who are righteous will be taken off the earth, put myself out on a limb, but I think that event may very well happen before, if not on the day, but certainly around about that day.
Do you think that could be a gradual thing as well? Like not just all at once?
I think there are possibly 3 events in one. Going back to what had to be completed before the 7th seal was open. You're familiar with the 144,000?
Yes.
Well, that had to be concluded before the 7th seal. So the 144,000 know who they are because they've been translated, that they've either been taken up.
So that happened before the 7th seal? I didn't know that.
It has to have happened before the 7th seal opens. So they know who they are. I believe they've been up there being trained, being given the information, because they're about to come down with the host of heaven, because the event that I think is coming, my friend who I'm spending that night with in relation to seeing whether this actually happens in the heavens, he's of the mind that the tribulation could actually start on the 31st of this month, or the quickening, shall we say, where because of what's about to happen between now and April 2021 is the start of those woes, which is the 7 trumpets. And we believe the 7 trumpets start on the 31st of October with this sign in heaven. That will kick off the tribulation the last 3.5 years. So I think what we're potentially going to see between now and April is either something significantly happen in the heavens that will allow this half hour of silence to end, which we're suggesting is April. I think the 3rd temple is actually ready to be built. They know it's going to cause massive problems. We know it's probably going to start a war. That war could very well be Armageddon, and it could last 3.5 years, which would take us to 2024.
That's where my head's at, 2024.
Now, here's where the good news is. As members of the church, if we're amongst the elect and we've had our Holy Spirit of promise upon us, it's just a question now of whether you're worthy for that blessing. And I believe those who are, and I'm not saying I'm one of them. I really do hope I've done enough, but I'm not convinced yet. But if I am, then I believe I'll be caught up. I'll be taken off the earth as amongst the righteous. And the church tells us, and particularly Doctrine and Covenants tell us, that those who are righteous will be taken up and lifted up off the earth while these woes are happening. So it could very well be that the majority, and I'm being very careful with my words here, because once this goes out, there's going to be a backlash, you know.
Yeah, okay.
We know that only 50% of the church will be ready anyway.
Yep, from the 10 parable, yep.
What people don't understand with that revelation is it's only for those who were actually invited to the wedding feast. If people haven't got ears to hear and eyes to see, then they're going to ask, who's this person that's getting married? Because what does the Lord say? You touch me with your lips, but not with your heart. So there are people who might go to church every week, but are they actually listening to what they're being taught? I'm not convinced that 50% of the church are ready, probably closer to 10%. So based on 14 million people, we could be looking at, numbers around, 1 to 2 million people who will be caught up, lifted off the planet, taken into heaven, trained up, called on missions, and then we'll come back as these tribulation is taking place. Because if we're not translated, we can't see the face of God. And if the face of God is April 2021, I'm sorry, I'm just getting emotional now, because I've battled with this all week. If Jesus Christ, and I'm not talking about his second coming now, because I think that's later, I think that's 2024, the sign for the quickening, the sign for the being caught up, is that Jesus Christ will part the heavens and those worthy will see his face and be caught up. Because if you're not caught up and translated, you won't see his face. We cannot, like Moses couldn't see him on the Mount of Transfiguration or when he went up onto Mount Sinai, he couldn't withstand his face. That's why it was...
But you can be transfigured momentarily. So maybe when the heavens part, you can be transfigured to see.
I believe the role of the 144,000 are to come down and to seal up those who are worthy to see the face of God.
Wow.
I believe that could be, and I hope so. I really pray, because I tell you why I pray, because I will see my wife, my son, and all my loved ones again, because they are now prepared, ready to come down. April 2021, I believe, is the end of the half-hour silence, when the angels are loosed and they're told to go and catch up what is the children of God. And I believe that will be signified by the end of the silence. And what does the Lord say? He says, and the woes start in my house. America is considered the land of milk and honey.
Yeah.
And if you look at what happened to the trumpets on the Salt Lake Temple, when the trumpet fell off.
Yes.
Now, I don't know about you, but I would have been a little bit worried if I had been at that point.
That's a pretty sure sign right there, isn't it?
And I believe he's going to allow those woes to come upon us. And I think potentially 31st of this month is the day of that. So could the being caught up occur any time from the end of this month? Absolutely. Because if the bottomless pit is opened, then the righteous saints have to be taken into the wilderness or taken up into heaven. The third temple being built. Now, I can assure you that temple is ready to go. They've only got to just announce it. And by the way, it doesn't have to be a massive thing. If you look at the original architecture around the Holy of Holies, it's not a big building. It's only got to house the Ark of the Covenant. That could be built within months.
And the sacrificial beast is all ready to go, isn't it?
And that has to be 3 years old. And guess what? It's just coming up to 3. That sacrifice has got to be made. And Jesus Christ makes that sacrifice, nobody else. So we've got the parting of the heavens, the face of Jesus. We've got the quickening. We've got the temple being built. We've got the potential of Armageddon started, because once the saints are taken up, Satan can't impact on us anymore. So he's got a very, very short window now to get as many as he can.
Yeah.
So if the righteous are taken up, those who are deemed, worthy, temple recommend holders, valiant saints, got their food storage, tick all the boxes, I believe you're going to be caught up. If you're anybody else that hasn't met that standard, and by the way, President, again, if you had ears to hear, what did President Nelson say? Live your life worthy to enter into his holy house. If that wasn't the sign given to us to be ready for what is about to become, as to why they never announced April conference, I think we're in for some hell of a ride over the next 6 months. And then the ultimate sign, and the one that will definitely put all this into place, I believe 2 apostles will get the call to go to Jerusalem, because once those woes are released, again, they have to be quickened, because they will have the ability to fight with fire. A little bit like Miguel Bendigo and the other fella, whoever he was.
Yep.
You know, even when they were put into the fire,
They didn't burn.
They didn't burn. Well, these two witnesses will be the same.
From my study, that's what, translated beings withstand all of that.
Because once you see these signs, you're going to know now, game over.
Yeah.
So those who have been valiant and those who have been faithful and those who have been righteous, they will be caught up and they will be taken out of harm's way. Mm. Because once these woes kick in, the utter destruction of America's going to burn like a tinderbox. Cities are going to be leveled. You won't even know where New York is anymore. You won't know where San Francisco is anymore. You won't even know where California is. You know, anywhere where the corruption is really, really strong, that's all going. Now, I believe that all starts to kick in as of April 2021. And then you got 3.5 years of woes then, and all of those woes are not going to be in a nice place to be. But you can see from that, you know, we're talking about a very, very narrow timeline. Yes. Mm. And I believe the second or the third part of the coming of Christ is we've got the second solar eclipse, which is in the fall of 2024, which strikes
and that's not theory, that's actually going to happen.
That's going to happen. That's recorded. It's prophesied. That goes right over the place of the heartland of America, which is Illinois. Now, historically, Illinois was a Zion place of the church. And then the next state to that, or just above where the X is, you've got Missouri, Adamong-Diarmid. I believe we're going to see the city of Enoch come down, because the sign given, where it says the sign of the Son of Man, that sign, again, looks like it's a meteorite coming to the earth. It is brilliant in color. Well, I believe that that's the city of Enoch, because that's actually gold.
Beautiful. Imagine that.
And that's coming down. But when we're looking at it from a distance, it's going to look like either a star or a meteorite or something of that kind of nature. There will be a great earthquake, which will level everything ready for the landing of the city of Enoch, so that everywhere is cleansed. The New Jerusalem is established. The saints have been lifted up. They've been gathered to Missouri, I would argue, after a lot of the burning, a lot of, you know, the problems that these woes are going to create. We're either going to be in heaven or we're going to be gathered to a place of safety, whichever that is. And there's so much research, it'd take me weeks to get through it. So we won't have to get planes, so we haven't got to worry about our COVID shots, because we won't need planes. So the key is we have our food stores ready, we show our faith to God, we follow that. And then I believe then is the back end of that 3.5 years is the Armageddon battle, where everybody will eventually fight against Israel. Lucifer can't take any more of the saints, because the saints are out the way. Many may die, many saints may die, but at the end of it, you know, we're promised that we will be with God wherever, as translated beings, as in caught up, or we face losing our lives
and resurrected at his coming, and
well, then we're resurrected at his second coming. So either way, we're going to see
exactly. You know, all the doom and gloom, you know, the scary things, we got to keep focus on what's actually at the other end of that, and that is absolutely amazing.
The thing, I mean, I've been a member of the church 35 years, and I was looking at this stuff 35 years thinking, oh boy, wouldn't it be great to be around that time? But also, it would be the best of times, but the worst of times. Now, 35 years ago, I gave no real thought to it. And here we are now.
In it.
Potentially, right in it.
Yes.
We are now. That last week of Daniel was prophecy. It's not my prophecy. It's not even President Nelson's prophecy. This was given to Daniel thousands of years ago. He said, once Jerusalem's walls were built, not the temple, Jerusalem's wall. Well, you got to remember, that city was reduced to rubble. It was rebuilt up in 1535. What we've got now is everything that needs to happen up till April of this year has gone. We've seen the signs, we've seen the temple dedication, but look what's going to happen in those last 3 years. And we're going to see it.
Yeah.
Your kids.
We're going to be here.
We're going to be here one way or the other, either as caught up, translated, deceased, come back, resurrected, whatever way.
This is it. We're in.
By the way, I missed something because this is why I got a bit emotional. In order for the silence of heaven to end and for us to see the face of God, all those who have died have to come forth out of the grave because they get caught up with him. Now, I've always saw that as his official second coming. It's not. It's when his face is seen. That's when the saints are resurrected.
Oh my goodness.
So that's why I got a little bit emotional.
Yes.
Because I do believe I'm going to see my wife in April. And my son.
Yeah.
So I've got to get the bathroom finished because the last thing that she wants to do before she passed away was a new bathroom suite. So I've just half fitted that. So I've got 6 months to get that finished.
Oh, that's exciting. See, that's put a whole new spin on things.
And the other thing that I learned today, and this is why I'm really, really so excited about all this stuff now. Years and years ago, it was just, Paul, what are you smoking? What are you on? What are you drinking? You know, but now they're saying, Dad, look at this. Oh, Granddad, what about this? And Granddad, what about? And I'm saying, well, this is all the stuff I've been trying to tell you for 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, because the key now is we're in it.
Yep.
It's not going to happen, or it might happen. We're in it.
It's happening.
We're watching.
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember, we've seen those 3 signs from 2017, or from 2020 was the half-hour silence. Yeah. Now the prophets has confirmed that half-hour silence. It's been confirmed by many prophets. The opening of the 7th seal would be significant events in the history of the church, because that half-hour silence starts, and that half-hour silence is calculable. Yeah, and we've calculated it.
Yeah.
This isn't a mamby-pamby, someone's just had a little look at this.
Yeah.
This is people who have, like me, given many, many hours and hours and hours and hours of research. By the way, we've all come up with the same answer.
Yes.
There are a few different interpretations as to what's actually going to happen. I've put myself out on the limb about 31st of October. Yep. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
It might not be that it doesn't happen. It just might be that you don't see it.
We don't see it. Well, it could be a cloudy night on the night and we not see anything. That's why we're going to the Lake District, because we're going to give ourselves the best opportunity to see it. So what we've got now is we're right in the middle of this. We're going to see it. I didn't think I'd be around for it. I thought it was years and years away. I've got a friend of mine who's quite high up in the church and has been for most of my church life, and he thinks it's 200 years away.
Yeah, and that's like a common consensus going on. Like people think that.
So it's either that they haven't studied, and this is where I do question why. I mean, I kind of have the answer now, but what you're going to remember, when a prophet speaks at a conference or even in the Ensign, even on a monthly basis, whatever they say is being scrutinized by the world, because Satan's looking to try and trick us. And if he can get the narrative, a little bit like what's going on in the American politics, I don't know whether you've seen today. I mean, today you've got Pelosi trying to use the 25th article of the
amendment. Yes.
Trying to get him out because he's got COVID-19. They're saying that his brain's, not functioning, that his decisions are based on the fact that he's taking medication that hasn't been approved and all this sort of stuff. She's trying to get him out. She couldn't get him out on anything else. Now she's trying to get him out on COVID-19.
It's just, oh my gosh, it's just like a movie.
What you've got is that scenario playing out with the church. It's either they don't want it to be true, or
they're just not seeing the signs that are right in front of them.
Their ears aren't open to hear.
Yeah.
And that's a warning that most saints have. Some people will have heard one thing at conference, and some people will have heard another. I tend to always hear the other, because the message is generally given to the world, not to individual members of the church.
It's general conference.
Yeah.
It's general.
It has to
make
be
it
very
in a general way. Just as
can you imagine
they gave the parables. I mean, some people will just think, "Oh, well, that was a cool story." It was only.
Could you imagine now if President Nelson said, "Oh, by the way, we won't be having April conference because there's none of us going to be here. We're all going to be caught up."
Not going to happen.
it's not going to happen, is it? You know, once again, wonderful to talk to you.
Oh man, I've just been so excited all week.
Well, there was so much more I could have threw into this, and I've realised I've got to break it down, because when you look at what's going on with you know, the title of this presentation was transhumanism.
Yeah.
If you look at what's going on now with all of the electronic industry, the nanotechnology. I mean, I think I mentioned previously, Boris Johnson has admitted that there's nanotechnology in this so-called vaccine for COVID-19. How can they produce a vaccine for something they haven't even isolated as a virus yet? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go very much down the truth-seeking, conspiracy theory element next, I think.
Yep, cool.
Because what we've got to show, or what I want to show people who are prepared to listen, is what's actually going on in the world that is bringing about this event, the second coming of Jesus Christ.
Yep, because it's all related. It's all intertwined.
Yeah. Like you say, a lot of the church members are just sticking to what the prophets are saying and keeping it very softly, and I respect them for that. But I'm prepared to put my head in the noose. Either way, I'm not bothered. You know what I mean?
And I'm prepared to listen, because it's like the most exciting story I've ever heard in my life.
Well, it is now, because we are talking about the greatest event in the history of the world, the significance of the birth, the atonement, resurrection. You know, we can add the resurrection into that. Yeah. Got some fascinating stuff around that as well.
Yes, we'll have to go down all of these.
You know what I mean? So there's just so much.
Yeah.
So once again, wonderful. Hope any listeners to this will just understand that I'm not a prophet. I'm not in any way representing the church. Most of this timeline is doctrinal. It's scriptural. Go and research it for yourself. Come up with your own conclusions. Yep. All I'm trying to do is look at what I see, what I hear, what I'm watching, what I'm witnessing, what information is being shared with me. I hope you enjoyed that.
I did. I loved it. It's a great start to my weekend.
Thank you so much, Kirstin, for being prepared to listen.
I
I hope your viewers enjoy it and get it all done. You do your magic now. Take care. God bless.
Thank you so much, my friend. You have a great week.
And you. Love you loads.
Love you too. Bye-bye.